Good thing I'm dead so I can enjoy this manga properly. Hello and welcome to the Nen Show Podcast. This is your host, Old Man Craftsdwarf, here with my co-host, Mathwiz. Say hello, Mathwiz.
We're here. It's Shaman King. It's the manga that's in the title of the video. Hello.
So yeah, in case you somehow missed it, we're reading Shaman King. Before we get into the discussion, personal history with Shaman King. I don't believe you have any, if I remember correctly.
No, I have never seen any of it. My only, what I think even put Shaman King on my radar, I'm trying to, look up the video. I remember Hiding in Public had made a video about it and talking about it sort of in the lens of, it coming out around the time of, the Big Three was starting to get big. It started publishing, I think it was, 98 to 04 or something like that. Around the time that Shaman King ended was sort of when Hitman Reborn was coming up and stuff. So it's kind of we're going back in era. But so it's I think that video had kind of looked at it from the lens of people don't talk about Shaman King in the same way that they talk about the Big Three. It's not as popular, at least over here in, not outside of Japan.
So even in Japan, it got canceled. Jump ended the manga literally. So we have one big long arc and then the final arc. It ended the manga just during that big long arc. And it did get a continuation in another magazine. Because as I understand it, I don't know if it's an official rule or unofficial rule, but if a Jump series that's over 100 chapters gets canceled, it's allowed to finish another magazine. But if it's shorter, then it's not. Which I remember, I think it's MXO is a series that's sort of infamously is really well like the people who like it really enjoy it, but it got canceled at 98 chapters, so there's just no hope of a continuation. So I don't, but obviously it's at least it did get an anime recently and a continuation obviously, and it had an anime back in the day as well, so it's not it's a complete failure because it got canceled. It's just jump sometimes, I guess.
It definitely wasn't something that I got negative impressions from. Also, for the record, the video I'm referencing is called The Shounen Anime Ripped from Greatness, which is a banger title and it's a banger thumbnail.
Nice. But yeah, I do want to add that as far as it getting canceled is I talked about it during the Reborn discussion, where it's just you're talking about what I from the outside imagine to be a particularly competitive period of time for Jump, where it just has it's as a magazine, it's already very brutal when it comes to cutting series and stuff, but at that time period you're you have so many popular big series that Shaman King being a mild success comparatively, being canceled, I don't think that that's not a negative in general. Success in everything, that doesn't denote quality or anything, right? Because people say, oh, the series, it went down in sales, so that means I'm gonna use that as justification to argue that it's bad. It's no, that's grow up. get out of there, get out of here. Right. So but anyway, as far as my experience with Shaman King, so one of my best friends, his favorite anime is the 4Kids dub of Shaman King specifically. And I haven't watched it. I have no experience. I just know that it's a 4Kids dub, so it would be the jokes would be ridiculous and it'd be censored to shit. But he likes it because it's really goofy, apparently. So I ended up reading the manga. And this is a friend I've also done role play with, especially One Piece role play. So we've even tried to do Shaman King role plays before, but it's I didn't really like Shaman King. And this is a period of time where I was would have been way more nitpicky and annoying. I'm not saying I disliked it for good reasons. Because again, Shaman King's I liked it a little bit more than Yu Yu Hakusho and Full Metal Alchemist, which I talked about that on where it's just I just did not enjoy those two manga back at the time period, which would have been the early 2010s, I think. And going back to Yu Yu Hakusho, it's I don't like it as much as Hunter x Hunter, but it's still a good and interesting manga. I'd reread it, especially if it got a retranslation. So with Shaman King, it's kind of one of those where it's like I'm not necessarily like jumping to go back to it, but I also feel like my opinion could radically change on a reread. And there were some neat things this reading. So and I obviously don't have any like I'm struggling to remember a lot of my negative takes. I remember one of them I felt like was so towards the end of this reading, they talk about how like a closeness to death, more basically you become stronger as a shaman. Because Yo has his training at the end there, and I remember feeling that was similar to like the Zenkai boosts in Dragon Ball, and I'm like, but it's like in a negative way, like I'm just like, oh, it's just like because I probably wasn't super into Dragon Ball and being really annoyingly critical about that as well. So seeing the same idea, I just like, oh, generic shonen, blah blah blah, just that kind of mindset was this fucking dumbass past Craftsdwarf. So yeah, not exactly a good time of my life to be reading Shaman King or experiencing much anything, but I had to be that annoying fucker to become the person I am now, so it is what it is. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to giving Shaman King a full read and see, I don't expect to love it, but I could be wrong. It could completely change my, I could really, there's already a couple things that I'm like, oh, okay, there's, stuff going on here, and you being into it, you'll have your own perspectives to share that can add to mine. So yeah, because that was one good thing before we started, you're like, oh, I'm looking forward to this discussion. It's like, oh, thank God, because not that you weren't looking forward to Reborn, but like it was. And of course I'm also having flashbacks to like, oh God, please don't let's get another Kinnikuman Gintama again.
Yeah, so, I know, like, I don't remember if it was, like, in the Nen Show comments, or if it was on, like, the server before I killed it, or if it was just people on Twitter saying something. I don't really remember, but, like, I feel like I got the impression that, like, people thought I might not like this manga, or that it might not be my thing, or maybe I'm thinking of something else, and I'm just pulling that out of thin air, but I feel like that happened. But yeah, like, I kind of had some interesting, like, the experience of this first reading was kind of interesting, because I know initially, like, getting into it, I wasn't a big fan of the art style, and, some of the, like, comedy wasn't working for me, and I thought that, Manta was kind of annoying, but I feel like by the end of the reading, like, I completely changed my opinion on the art style. It's that, like late 90s, early 2000s, like, just very pointy and sharp, and I feel like it works really well with the character designs. And, like, Manta got some good stuff, and, it's just, I feel like I ended up liking it very quickly.
Nice. Yeah, and as far as the art goes, like, because, so the covers are actually redrawn, and, like, you could see, there's comparisons of the original artwork for the covers and then the redrawn ones, and then there's also, you might have noticed the remix chapters, which just have a straight up completely different art style, because they were presumably drawn much later, because he's still doing Shaman King, he's doing all these other spin-off manga, so it's really interesting to see, like, this the original art, and then you just see, like, a couple pages of, like, an extra chapter, and it's like, it doesn't even look like the same manga author. Like, it's just amazing, the transformation. So I'll expect his art to continue to evolve. Let me get his name. Actually, Takei Hiroyuki. So yeah, I'll expect Takei's art to. Yeah, I don't remember how much it changes. Like, I don't think it hits that point of those remix chapters in the whole run of the manga, but I think it's very normal for, especially, like, in this case, I don't expect he had that many manga, or at least not long runners before Shaman King. So, especially for a new artist, their art's going to evolve and change regardless, right? Just because, like, they're just drawing so much more. So, but yeah. But anyway, getting to the first chapter, we get introduced to Manta and Yo and a bunch of spooky ghosts. And of course, new transfer student. I mean, it's a bunch of familiar stuff, but also, like, I'm just, like, I laughed at the, like, Manta having the big O face when he sees Yo for the first time. Just, like, like, some of the expressions are fun.
Yeah, I was like, initially I was kind of having a hard time placing like what the art style like reminded me of, but maybe it's just other manga at the time.
No, we definitely read, like, I remember, um, just, yeah, some of the manga we've read just felt like, oh yeah, this, like, just time period. But, actually, like, yeah, especially, like, so, like, looking at the school again, like, specifically, there's, like, the panel of, like, three of the classmates, and especially the one on the far right, to the right of the girl, is, like, just gives me a vibe of, like, rave, so of Mashima's old art style, which would have been the same time period, more or less, because I think that was 99. So yeah, I think it's just like, just time period art similarities might be,
Yeah, because I feel like I also kind of saw like a little bit of One Piece in here with just, I think, just like the goofy expressions and like the eyes bulging out and stuff.
The cartoony, yeah, that makes sense.
And also like some of the like hairstyles, I don't know. I'd be able to point them out more as we go along.
Okay,
but
yeah,
obviously I don't really know this mangaka's influences, so
that's a good point. Yeah, because and I was definitely thinking about how like the series that came out alongside, especially One Piece, because I'm eternally One Piece brained. My brain is just rubber. So like, but I was especially thinking of it in contrast to like how certain ideas I think are really different from like Yo in particular are just particularly like contrasting to like Naruto and One Piece, especially like with him being more laid back. Like Anna even has the comment on like people who what was it, I forgot. I'll bring it up later because I'll have the exact wording on hand.
It's like something about like people who chase their own dreams are like in it for themselves and like crumble easier. Which was right. Yeah, it was definitely interesting. It feels almost kind of antithetical to some of those other manga we're familiar with, but also there is like some development over the course of this reading even that is it will be interesting to get into.
Yeah. But anyway, Manta becomes interested in Yo, sort of follows him around, learns that he's a shaman.
Yeah, I think maybe why I didn't initially like this first chapter is because and why I didn't like Manta initially is because it's just a lot of screaming at everything. Like screaming in surprise, screaming in anger, screaming in, it's just like, it's a lot.
No, that makes sense. And especially like, because now I'm thinking about the contrast where Yo is just really chill and Manta is like freaking out over everything, which, I mean, I definitely understand being a bit off-put by it because like, especially like, I can imagine watching the anime if they give him like a voice actor who's like really good at being annoying or pathetic. I can see that just grating and it's like, wow, yeah. But it also like, as aside from that contrast with Yo, and especially like once we get more into his character, it makes sense why he'd freak out about something abnormal. No, Manta gets him. Yeah, I think I liked Manta way back when too. And so yeah, I still like him. Because he's just rejecting the abnormal as someone who has like a very normal, if extreme set of expectations set on him. So yeah.
Yeah, and it, like even in the first chapter, like how he's kind of pushing back on everything that Yo does, but is still like, I wish I could do that.
Yes, exactly. Then we get introduced to Ryu, delinquent boy.
I did not expect to like this character as much as I ended up liking him.
Oh yeah, no, like with the Tokugaru's Garo stuff and just getting more focus is like, yeah, no, for sure. No, that was definitely one of the things that surprised me when I first read it, because it's like, oh cool, okay, throwaway thug guy, and it's like, nope, secondary character. So and yeah, he's actually like yeah, here he is being introduced. He's a bit violent for sure, but he's also, we get more of him, and he has some good stuff with Manta too, and but he beats the shit out of Manta, and Yo sort of takes on himself to help him. Then we get introduced to Amidamaru, the samurai, who's another regular character. Sort of Yo's buddy, basically. Because it's like, it's not a proxy battle series, but I definitely think that it sort of has some of the similar like elements by the fact that they have like these comrade spirits that will have their own like deals going on.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that like initially, just per like how kind of the first two chapters go, I thought it could be a sort of thing where like they like have one conflict against a new spirit and somehow like they're able to use that ability. But it just really ended up being like Amidamaru, and all the other ones that were introduced were like tied to other characters or just, on their own.
Yeah, and well, especially for me, knowing more about like how the mechanics sort of unfold, like it's interesting going back to the early stuff because it's like, how do I put this? It feels like almost like I'm actually, because I feel like it was always intended to be a battle series, like but it doesn't necessarily come across immediately. Like, yeah, there's action in the first chapter, but then there's also just more like more. There's how do I put this? There's more different things going on. Like the second chapter is more focused on like resolving this spirit's issues, and then and then the third one had the painter spirit who it's like they don't even like there's some action, but they don't I like how they don't resolve all the conflicts with fighting necessarily. Like at the end of the day, like they talk about how like everyone who can see spirits is probably a good person, and then the spirits themselves, like, especially like aren't necessarily evil necessarily, like even probably one of the ones who is Tokagero is like understood ultimately. So it's just like it's just really positive and cool. But anyway, yeah, Yo beats Ryu. Then we get to the second chapter with the blacksmith, Amidamaru's friend, as we find out. That's the one with the billboard that keeps falling, and the painter. I already kind of talked about that one, so.
Yeah, I guess something I also kind of find interesting about this initial stretch is that like, even when it's doing the introductory, like a lot of the elements that are introduced in those little introductory chapters are like pretty immediately like part of the overall. Like some battle manga, it kind of feels like they can take a little time to sort of figure out like what exactly it is. Like Hitman Reborn, for example, obviously is kind of a weird case because it started out as a comedy, but we didn't get the set power system until like several arcs in.
Yes, into the series stuff even, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like even with some other manga, like, Hunter x Hunter with like the Hunter exam, you don't get Nen right off the bat. So conflicts are kind of resolved a little bit differently, even if it does kind of do things to foreshadow how Nen will work. So I just think it's kind of interesting that it feels like this manga has like a pretty immediate like direction it's going in.
Yes, and like, and yeah, it doesn't make that clear at first, where it's like, again, especially like Yo not like he does want to become the Shaman King, but he's not like loud about it, right? Like but what was I gonna say is like, how do I put this? It is kind of like Hunter x Hunter in that sense, where like even though they are using the power system immediately, but the rules are still consistent and stay consistent. Like one example I can think of is how they mentioned really early on that like even before we see a nature spirit or something, because there's this dichotomy between like there's human spirits who and then there's like nature spirits and gods basically, and the nature spirits are basically way more powerful, which or they have higher potential. But because like Horohoro's spirit, probably isn't on the strong side necessarily, because it's just a little baby, right? But even then, so that's one thing they established early on that I remember coming up later. So it's just it seems like it's got enough things hashed out, and it's also kind of interesting seeing like the different like we get to Anna soon, but there's just also different, like there's not just shamans in this world of spirits, even though they're really important. So yeah, it's neat.
Yeah, like even like the chapter with the boxer, like it's just, I don't know. It's not like I'm not loving it off the start, but it's like very, I don't know. I guess it was just easy to kind of get invested in pretty quickly. The general premise of like, these, at least in this initial arc of like these spirits who, for one reason or another, like haven't been able to rest, and so kind of, or how they affect people in the real world, and Yo kind of serving as this like vessel to resolve like whatever is going on there.
Yeah, like if there's a world of spirits and a world of humans, shamans are the ones that connect the worlds, and so he does that to like in this case he helps the boxer get over his sort of grief and disconnect from losing his, master, and get back into boxing, right? So yeah. Even though Yo ends up not liking boxing, he's like, nope. I thought the way that chapter ended was funny, where he's like, nope, boxing is not my thing. I'm just gonna let the spirit go because I don't want to do this. He's just all beat up.
One little detail of his character design that I feel like I can't go without mentioning is that, like, the headphones are cool, but he, like, never has them over his ears, I feel like. They're just kind of on his head, and it's like, it's like, it's a good design, it's just kind of, like, it's goofy.
It's so uncomfortable. Like I've had to or been everyone who's used headphones has probably like had them on their head but couldn't have them on their ears for some reason. It's just like no. So he wants an easy life, but he's living in constant discomfort and suffering. I don't know. You just made me think about it, but yeah. Anyway, then there's a chapter with the memorial tablets, which is like. I mean, because I've been playing the Pokemon DLC, and I also yesterday I finished the Pokedex in Pokemon Red. So I'm just like spirit Pokeballs, and then of course it also just sort of gets into how Yo and Amidamaru have their dynamic, where like especially because like they talk about later how the the spirit needs to have its feelings attuned to the Master 1%, and. Amidamaru is a samurai, but he also has his own thing. He chose Yo as his master basically, and here we see Yo having trust in Amidamaru as well, so they have like more of a mutual relationship. So good way to set that up or establish that rather.
Yeah.
Then we get introduced to Mr. Rival Boy, Ren.
I really liked how the introductory page was like already a callback to the first chapter and framed with the exact same sort of scenario, and just Manta running into the graveyard, and it's just
but with a little angry boy instead of a chill shaman dude. Yeah. But he's coming to poach Amidamaru, and he just starts shit in the open. And because I will point out, because it's like, because Yo's talked about how he feels that everyone who can see ghosts is at least something of a good person. Though I feel like at least up to this point we really haven't seen that from Ren. Which I know some of the ways his character goes, because obviously we end off where it's like they're gonna fight, but we don't see the fight, or they're gonna have a rematch rather. Yeah.
Well, I think even like Ren's motive as he describes it initially, that like humans pollute the world, and sort of this whole kind of recurring conflict of like or at the very least like a background element of like the like modern world and like all this technology and civilization and stuff kind of like losing touch with the spirits and like the planet, and a little like environmentalism thing kind of, but tied into tradition and all these all this spiritual stuff. And it's I don't know, I think it's interesting.
No, yeah, that's true. And then of course we've kind of find out at the end a bit that he's got some stuff going on with his family that he's not happy about. So he sort of uses the integration, the 100% integration, and we get the conflict of ideals of spirits as tools versus spirits as people, and Yo working with Amidamaru in that way, which it just fits his ideals. And even just like the way he like he tries, like I said, he connects the dead and the living, and he even treats the dead as he just he sees them as people, where Ren has a sort of conflicting mindset, and it doesn't work out for him. Unfortunate. Anyway, Yo ends up in the hospital after the fight. We get a flashback with his grandpa training him, bit on his family, where it turns out, his whole family is awesome, basically. So he's got a lot to live up to. And yeah, as I mentioned before, I do like how they established there's just, a bunch of other types of ways to engage with the spirit world. We also finally get, like, an understanding of what the title means, where he talks about the Great Spirit, who's basically, God and the Shaman King. guiding the world and stuff, where we get a more detailed explanation on that. And then Anna comes in, Yo's
Let's
fiance.
go. She's great.
Yeah, she's good. I like her.
Because I like what I really like about her is that like she's kind of introduced as you know, there's always kind of like that slapstick joke in manga like this where there's like the one person, whether it's like a teacher or like just a girl in the crew, just like, oh, you know, she's not a combatant, but like, you know, she'll like beat the shit out of the protagonist if they're getting up to shenanigans. Or just that sort of like, even kind of like the, like even kind of in Hitman Reborn, like Reborn teaches with a lot of like
violence,
reprimanding and violence. But like with her, it's like she does do all those things, but she's also like, I don't know how to describe it, because I guess now that I'm getting into it, that kind of feels like Reborn as well. But I don't know, just like her whole like kind of just like unwavering faith in Yo, and she's, you know, her whole motivation is like, well, yeah, I'm gonna do all this stuff, but it's because like I, you know, have full faith in him, and it's, I don't know, it's she's good.
Yeah.
Girl boss.
Didn't think about it, but no, yeah, that checks out. But yeah, she's also like, you know, because Yo is pretty chill, and because she has faith in Yo, she's also able to push him and, you know, help him train and stuff. So I guess you know, she's also really nice because she just thinking like story wise, because Yo is so chill, she's someone who is able to like, you know, she also cares about his ambition to become Shaman King, basically. In some ways, maybe more than he does. No, I don't.
Yeah.
Think, but yeah, and then so she's there to kind of push him, you know, to, you know, so even if like he's not that like Luffy type or Naruto type character where it's like, I'm gonna be the guy, she's there to push kick Yo's ass, basically, so that, you know, because he definitely wants it for sure, but you know, he's just too chill. So Anna comes in and sort of like is able to push him into motion a bit.
And yeah, just like her whole attitude of like, you know, I'm going to be the first lady of the shaman world. You're going to be Shaman King, even if it kills you, because I deserve nothing less. But also, I do like how later in the reading, like there are moments where Yo does, like, I think specifically the stuff with the training in the cave, like she's definitely concerned about like, she doesn't want Yo to die. But at that point, it's like, this is a decision he made for himself. I can't really like, I have to let him have this.
Yeah, because especially the way they introduce her, where like she's slapping around Manta, and when she barely knows him, she's definitely meant to come across as really harsh. But you know, we do see that. Yeah, no, she does legitimately care for Yo. She's not just like selfish, you know. So yeah. But yeah, but then Anna comes into the school because Yo will never have reprieve, because he needs to get his shit together and train. Meanwhile, Ryu runs afoul of Ren, gets his hair cut.
Again.
Yeah. His hair is just such a recurring gag. Like we see it later, where I think it's like a heart inside of it because it's like kind of going back. And yeah, that's it's fun.
Will he ever get his full pompadour back?
I'm not gonna answer that because I kind of don't remember. But then we get introduced to Ren's sister June, who she's definitely, you know, I mean, especially considering the timing of an introduction. Like, obviously, she has a different relationship to Ren, but it's like, hey, she's another, you know, Yo's rival has, you know, a woman who is also of a different type of spiritual artist, so to speak. But you know, where Anna is supportive of Yo, June is, you know, she shares the same ideals as Ren, where it's like she's using a corpse as a tool, basically, and not caring about its humanity. But yeah, she comes in to get Amidamaru with Lee. And yeah, it is also sort of discussed how, like, you know, June's just sort of grown up in her family, so she didn't, like, question anything. but then it turns out that like, oh no, the corpse, even departed from the soul, still has some like memory, basically. Like Lee starts crying and stuff, so she sort of recognizes like that maybe she's not in the right necessarily, and ends off being a bit, like, yeah, she's even working with Lee directly instead of controlling him. So yeah,
I'll be interested to see where that goes.
Then you also get Manta being cool, where he to help Yo, who's, he even says Yo's helped him so much, so he is willing to fight Ryu to get the sword, and even if he gets the shit kicked out of him, but he's gonna help his friend, and it's like, yeah, friendship, let's go.
Yeah. I also kind of liked the kind of resolution of this conflict where like the like teacher martial artist gets involved, and the whole thing about like killing the ego, and the other guy's like, I don't have any attachments to this world, and it's like, really? Then why are you so set on revenge?
Yeah.
And I feel like I feel like that's sort of an idea that's present in other characters, maybe, but maybe not. I don't know.
I'll have to think about it, because I did not think about associating that further, so I'll keep that in mind, or I'll try. But yeah, it's like, both Lee and his vengeance and Junin controlling corpses completely, both of them had faults, and they both, came to overcome them and work together going forward. So, yeah. And I mean, we can definitely expect to see more of the Tao family. Like, during the Lee flashback, we see a bunch of intimidating silhouettes, and it's like, oh. So yeah. So anyway, Ryu's bummed out, looking for more happy places. Falls in love with Anna. Doesn't work out so well. Then he gets involved with Tokagero, the bandit spirit, with the grudge against Amidamaru. Yeah, I dug this one. Because, yeah, you got, like, the kind of distinction between, like, Ryu, he's a delinquent, but, he doesn't steal, and, he treats his friends well, which, so once Tokagero takes over, they kind of, like, oh, something's wrong, right?
Yeah, I really like that kind of character type where it's, like, the delinquent who is actually, like, no, but we're not going to break the law, and, like, we're not going to do anything scummy. It's... I don't know, he's goofy, and he's good.
Yeah. Anyway, then, Amidamaru and Tokagero fight. We learn a bit more about Amidamaru's backstory, and his, like, camaraderie, and, like, what the sword represents to him. But, then I also like how they deal with that, where it's, like, he breaks the sword because, like, at the end of the day, like, the friendship is what's important, not this, like, symbol of it, so he's willing to do that to, break the sword to save, Ryu and keep humans alive. And, yeah. And then the way the conflict, like, works out, where it's like, yeah, Ryu's protected by his friends, and then Yo even extends a hand to Tokagero and gives him, like, puts trust in him where no one else ever had, and that, like, actually breaks through to his heart. And it's like, yeah, good.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, just the idea of, like, not just saving lives, but saving souls as well, which I think fits with the, Yo doesn't see spirits as, like, lesser or, than human just because they've passed on, so, yeah.
This is also kind of the first conflict where, Yo and Anna are at odds kind of with each other in a way. Like, she's ready to just exorcise him, and Yo's like, no, I can still save him. And even to the point where, like, she's, like, very concerned and, like, crying because, like, oh no, he just killed himself. But I don't know, it's good stuff.
Also, I'm noticing, so when Tokagero exits Ryu's body, the sound effects are drawn in bones. I just noticed. So, like, because there's even the translation, the dom. That's also drawn in bones, so that's pretty good. I didn't notice that the first time through. But yeah, Tokagero, who's lived his life stealing things, was finally given something, and he just, yeah, it's cool, and good. And then you also have both Ryu and Manta sort of, like, having potential for shaman things, which is neat. So Ryu starts his training.
Yeah, no, this chapter where like he's doing the cooking for them, and like all of his guys are like helping out around the inn, and it did a lot to endear me to the character because he's just a goofball.
Yeah, and like there's also the part where the sword got broken, so they have Yo and Ryu inhabit the spirits of Mosuke and Amidamaru, and Anna has a line where because they punch each other, and it's like, I missed you, brother, and Anna's just like, oh, what is the same homophobic rituals to obscure the fact that they have feelings. I was like, damn.
Yeah. That was an interesting translation. Or, I mean, maybe that's closer to what she actually said. I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting line.
Well, it's especially interesting because it's like, so you brought up the one, I think it was the one translation with Manta being called the midget, which was like, you're like, oh yeah, when was this translated? And so because I don't know for sure, because I know this was a re-release where they used the updated versions of the volumes with the covers and the additional extra chapters that were drawn way later. But then there are still like you mentioned that translation. There's also the Tanuki character who shows up towards the end, which that was absolutely like edited and censored, because you can even see it on the first cover spread and like another color page later. There's some thing with Tanukis, especially like mythical ones, where they're just given like giant balls, and like there's especially one page where and they change it to his stomach, and like at one point Anna like grabs them, and it's like very obvious what's supposed to be happening, but they edit that out, which I feel like is an artifact of probably when what might have been originally translated and released, because it's like, I can understand why, because this manga had a 4Kids dub. They're not going to sell volumes with that in a manga that could be read by a child who just watched the 4Kids dub, But because I guess I feel like if the manga were released today and just like did a full complete release, like they're gonna retain it unless there's something like really like I don't know, maybe I'm just completely mistaken, but I just feel like with so many manga coming out, they probably aren't really getting censored, at least artwork wise, like they used to. So that's why. But this translation is interesting because it doesn't feel like it came out of 2004, if you know what I mean, or 2006 or whatever. Because like, yeah, she's commenting on like the toxic masculinity, and which even just made me think more about like how Yo isn't like super masculine in himself, and just how maybe that's kind of interesting in regards to like the like you mentioned, some of the ideas and what they talk about feeling almost antithetical to some of the other series that would have been coming out at the time. So I don't know, it's just something interesting. So I wanted to point it out. Oh yeah, and also on the note of those pages is because there's a chapter after that where the comet Arahu goes through and basically announcing the start of the shaman fight, and like there's so many characters and designs we see, and a bunch of them like. Some of them we do see later, but there's some that we still haven't seen yet, and they're like, I'm also recognizing they were also on the first color page from chapter 1, so it's just like there's some we're gonna see some, I don't know, still stuff in mind that we haven't gotten to yet, so okay, so I didn't notice at first, but at the end of the chapter, Ren is riding on his horse. And I'm looking at the horse. I didn't really pay attention to the horse and its human eyes. And because like we see the horse again later, because he mentioned like Basin being stronger with a horse. And so he got that as a spiritual vessel, basically. But I just noticing that, nope, that's the same horse because it's got the same human eyes. And just didn't notice it before. Halfway done with the reading. But yeah, we're introduced to a Silva, the... what's the word?
Official?
Shaman fight. Official, thank you. Yeah, that's that. Brain didn't work. But he's got a test for Yo to make sure he's fit for the shaman fight. I guess one thing I've noticed is that even if like Yo's fairly different in some ways compared to maybe some other shonen protagonists, he still has that element of like learning through fighting. That's not uncommon, because that's he learns how to do the oversoul through imbuing his spirit through an object, and is able to hit Silva through that. So Yeah.
But I like how before that, when he's trying to figure out what to do, he just like throws a Mitamaru and it doesn't do anything.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then he does like the bit where he's doing like an exorcism and it doesn't work.
Oh, that's
But then
right.
like you see a Mitamaru like floating away.
These are American spirits. Your Buddhist chant's not gonna work. Like, that was... That's really silly. I like it.
But yeah, I do like how, most of the other, most of the other characters have, like, kind of more, like, animal spirits or things that aren't, like, human, spirits. And, like, human spirits are supposed to be weaker, but, like, Yo finds a way to, like, even when it's like it's a new power system being introduced, he's like, no, I'm gonna take what I already know and I'm gonna make that work.
Yeah. Oh yeah, then we get the part where Anna's talking with Monta about wanting a comfortable, easy life, and how the fact that he he's not out for glory, or he doesn't have a big grand ambition that might crumble when push comes to shove, like, that makes him stronger in a way, and which is, it's good and neat and interesting, because he's incorruptible, and that's what she loves about him. So
so it's like, the other cool thing about that, I think, is that, like, it's an arranged sort of like an arranged relationship that, like, these two are gonna marry, but it's like there does seem to be like a genuine connection there of some sort. And like, even though Anna like has like a lot of like, oh, I need to, I can do this, and this to like make Yo better. But at the end of the day, like, the core of his personality is still admirable to her.
Mm-hmm.
Or she's just saying that and has fooled us all.
Yeah, Yo passes his test. He gets his pager, which doesn't date the manga at all.
Reminds me of like the PSA in the Hunter x Hunter manga at the end of I think it's at the end of the Hunter exam, where like they're talking about like, oh, this new technology called the internet.
Yes, you can access it through computers, and it's like, yeah. Then a couple chapters, then like, I mean, okay, in universe, like a year later, in reality, like fucking hundreds of chapters later, like Leora's on a smartphone, and it's like, okay, gotta love it.
Yeah, that's always one thing I find. Well, actually, that's just getting on a Hunter x Hunter tangent, but I do find it interesting how like the Hunter x Hunter 2011 anime like works with that, because it's still like a lot of old internet concepts, but like the technology is more modernized. Anyway,
okay, I gotcha.
I wonder if I'm wondering, like, did Shaman King, I forget what year it was, but like, did the remake do anything with the pager to modernize it, or
I didn't think about that. Because
it could realistically be like just like a tablet or something.
Yeah, I really haven't heard anything about the modern Shaman King adaptations, so I really don't know anything about it. Where I know the original, all I remember is that it. I mean, so even before the manga ended, it hit a case where it's like we're too close to the original material, so they just like had an anime original ending during that big long arc before the final arc, where they defeat the main antagonist, and I don't remember much details beyond that, like if it works or not. So, but yeah, I don't really, I've never watched any Shaman King, I'm pretty sure. So, and of course, after Yo gets his victory, barely gets his victory against Silva, it contrasts that with Ren fucking killing his official. So it's like, oh, okay. Hyping him up.
Yeah, and the way that they kind of spin it, that it's like, well, if it, like the whole generation, not even generational, but like once in every like 500 years or whatever the number was, that like, well, if the almighty spirit, I also forget what they call it, but like if they will it, then it's like, then it was a worthy sacrifice that one of us died. And Silva's just like, bullshit.
Yeah, the officials kind of have like a fatalistic kind of almost like they don't maybe don't even see much difference between life and death because they're so close to death. So where of course as we see with Faust later, like Yo even mentions like, life only has value because of death, right? So so Silva's here about caring about this life that was lost, where the other officials kind of don't, which is maybe possibly reflective of this these higher ups in the spirit world basically. But I don't really remember that much regarding it, so like I'm not trying to be like, hey, these are ideas that come in later. I just have no fucking idea.
It feels to me like they kind of have, I mean, I know you said it is like fatalistic the way they're kind of like, well, if it happens it was meant to happen, and it's like they don't have agency or don't act like they do. And so like I don't know, I'll just be interesting to see if that comes to anything, like bad things happening, and they're like, well, it's not our place, and it's like they're letting things happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but it could just be an interesting detail.
Well, because I will say, so this is one of those series that's mostly a tournament arc, which I don't actually think we've gotten to yet, now that I think about it. Like, we've had series with tournament arcs for sure, like Yu Hakusho being, a big one, for example, but like, most of even up to this point, like we're just like this is the preliminaries, and then we get more of a not quite a round robin, but it's more that initial shaman fight. Then they do like
the
a
format
transition
of
arc.
it is interesting too. That like you can lose a fight but not get eliminated.
Yes. And so we get that, and then we just go into a big tournament that takes up most of the series. And because I've heard there are other series like that that are just like the whole. I mean, the only one I know of is Kengan Ashura, but this I'm talking more about like older because I apparently it's like an old sort of like trope that used to be really popular was like the tournament arc, which we still have like I mean we still think of it in terms of tournament arcs, but I guess at a certain around this period they were like more popular to a degree where I feel like you don't really see them anymore. But yeah, it's just I just hadn't thought about how we actually hadn't gotten a series like this where it's mostly tournament arc, I feel. So yeah. But yeah, Goldva does talk to Silva about how, they sort of believe that like outcomes and like even not even the Great Spirit knows the future, so anything is possible. Just sort of, offering a counter ideology. And fucking Anna being like, "Oh, who is Silva?" like, just being super jealous and catty is so funny. Like, she's just, "You're cheating on me," and it's like, I just thought that was funny. And it is the butchered oversoul, and she's like, "No," just I don't know, funny humor. So anyway, we find out about Horo Horo, who is Yo's first foe for the shaman fight. Every time I try to say his name, I just think of fucking Perona's laugh from One Piece, because she just like says his name over and over again, and that's how she laughs.
I do find it funny how when he gets introduced, like Yo has like the new battle costume, and he's like, "You look stupid," and then Anna's like, "So you're telling me that this outfit I worked my fingers raw to put together is looks bad?" And then it's like she's won her first preliminary, and it's like she's not.
And just like I like the way how he's introduced, all like first he's on the tree and he's I'm gonna beat the hell out of this guy, and then he's got shady eyes. But no, then Lana just kind of reduces him to the dork he is. Basically, because he's just a dork.
Yeah.
So.
I'm the future wife to the Shaman King. What? You're gonna be my wife?
Yep.
And then it's like, you're engaged? Like he's a goofball.
Yeah, and also one thing I completely forgot about regarding this character, probably because I wouldn't have had any real context for it back when I first read the manga, is that he's an Ainu, which I did a bunch of research for my Monster Hunter video, because I talk about sort of like, Japan's history with colonialism, which includes their, what they did with the Ainu people and, basically destroying, Hokkaido, colonizing and Hokkaido. And yeah, so they don't really touch on any of that here, but I did just have that like, oh, I already had some context regarding what their deal was, basically. Also, I did read a Golden Kamui, which is also very focused on the Ainu. Yeah, I definitely feel like between that and Legends Arceus, Pokemon, there's more awareness for the Ainu peoples nowadays in the English speaking sphere, which I just, like I said, did not have a decade ago. So it was just a neat little, I recognize this.
I also like how with this fight, kind of before, and the other one might have been during, but like, he comes in and it's like, you're already engaged. I feel so inferior, and it's like, I can't win, and it's like, we haven't even fought yet. And then when Yo's like, what's your ambition? What's your goal? And then he's like, that's so cool. You have to be the Shaman King.
They have funny interactions, goofballs. But I also like how Yo's sort of thing where it's like, I'll take on I'll be Shaman King, or and I'll just make your dream come true as well. Which Horohoro's like, well, hold on, the point of dreams is fulfilling them yourself. But I don't know. I also like the idea of Yo sort of building on everyone's ambitions into his own.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of interesting, like, seeing the two fights that we got. We have one where Horohoro is a guy who Yo kind of connects to quite a bit. Like, they're basically friends. Even though they had to fight each other, and Yo ended up winning. And then you have Faust, who is much more, like, antagonistic and sinister, and he's the one who Yo loses to. So, interesting. But yeah, Silva talks about how Yo is able to sort of keep going without fear of death, and that's what he allows him to, pull out the win. Oh yeah, and then we get the after party, where they're just chilling. Ryu's pompadour takes another shape as Horohoro like crushes it with his snowboard, and it gets like a dent. Even before that, it becomes a heart because he thinks the Kororo's adorable. I think that's what she's called. Kororo. Yep. Then we get introduced to his sister, who, like, again, Yo even connects to him more. It's like, this seems familiar when he's dragging Horohoro away, and it's like, hold on. So then after that, I like how they introduced the foreigner's graveyard, where it's like, yep, these bodies were not cremated, because we need skelly men in this next battle. And of course also just, like, Faust himself is also foreign, where, Horohoro's is Japanese, even if he's like a more less populous Japanese race, basically through the Ainu, but Faust is straight up a foreigner. So yeah, foreigner graveyard. And even the necromancer, where I think all the types of shamans, I guess so far, like, I mean, I guess except for the Native American shaman we get with Silva and such. I guess necromancer. Yeah, he's never mind. I didn't think about that, but this is a very much different kind of a foreign, again, type of sorcerer, basic, or undead related thing. Words. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely interesting how, like, all under the same system, but like different variations of, like, because then it also allows for like some interesting motivations that tie into the powers, and it's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Faust is definitely like, even if he's definitely, again, like I mentioned, more antagonistic, he still has this ultimate motivation of just like, he wants to save a life, or return a life to being, so he's got that, again, that something at least good in intent, I guess, even if like, he's become kind of very twisted regarding it.
Yeah.
So, and also,
and the whole thing about like, I lost a battle with death, so like as a doctor, so then then turning that into like the origin of his powers, like, well, okay, if I can't heal people, well, then I can like revive them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a neat connection, and then leading to his motivation as the wanting to become the Shaman King. So
this character design is also incredibly gender.
Okay. I know.
I also like how
it, but
I like how he has the kind of Gara like eye bags, where it's like, that's not eye makeup. It's like, no, I just I haven't slept or worked so hard to figure this out.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, another thing that's sort of like one of the things that stuck with me was just because he cuts open Monta, and I remember being kind of just surprised that it's like, oh shit, that's pretty fucking gory.
Yeah.
So, though that said, it did make me laugh later. I think Anna says something, and Monta has a straight man response, and blood just gushes out of his body. And I'm just like, oh god, him being a straight man is literally going to kill him. So they get into the fight. There's the part where he like does surgery on himself by replacing his broken bone with another bone that matches his blood type, and it's like, Jesus Christ.
And yeah, the way that this fight all plays out of like, you know, a shaman using their, like, tactically using their abilities as opposed to just like who has the most. And so like, you know, we both like in this fight see that, you know, we get that more like angry side of him where it's like, hey, if you fuck with my friend, I'll kill you. Well, maybe not kill, but maybe he says, I don't remember. Ordinarily that feels very like not his thing, but like, because he's always laid back, but here he's very like vicious.
Yeah, that's a good point, I guess. I didn't think about how like Faust as a foe, more so than anyone Yo has fought before, is able to like get under his skin and make Yo sort of like betray who he is, in a sense, where it's like, yeah, he's not laid back at all. He becomes like, I said it. Words are hard. Why can't I speak words? I don't know.
And then like the thing with his powers where like, you know, using it smartly, where like he distributes a very small amount to all these skeletons, but then like when he's using it full force, like, you know, it's more of like a human looking form. So like it was kind of the combination of, you know, aggravating Yo and then, you know, playing into that he's not thinking very clearly and is just mowing down whatever's in his way.
Yeah, no, Faust is definitely like, I mean, especially considering he has his like, well, I guess both him and Yo have like their lineage and their family and stuff, you know, but Faust definitely feels like he has more experience as a shaman, you know, like he's in his desperation, I guess he's taken on more things, where Yo is still, you know, he's been doing his shaman stuff for a while, but he definitely feels like he has way more room to grow. Like he's lacking in experience, basically. So,
yeah. So it's like it's a fight where he can kind of learn multiple different lessons from it.
Oh yeah, there's the joke I was thinking of where Monta's like, why weren't you here earlier, Anna? And she's like, I had to go buy a raincoat. And he's like, you were shopping? It's just fucking, and he's just out. He's done. Then of course there's Eliza, who, the one he still has her skeleton because he's trying to bring her back to life, and he sort of does as like a, you know, basically a doll, where it's like, you know, she just has no real personality or soul. But of course, Yo pointed in that because he does care. Like, I guess in contrast to June, you know, she didn't have any personal investment in Lee. She just, you know, saw him as a corpse doll because that's what she was raised to believe. Where with Eliza, he does care a lot about her, you know, so Yo, calling that out with him puppeting her pisses him off. So
yeah, which I guess that is kind of an interesting progression from like, you know, the early antagonists not really treating their weapons or like their what's it called, the things they integrate with as like tools more than anything. But it's like here, you know, obviously like with Horo, it's definitely more like Yo, where it's like, no, this isn't just a tool. This is like, you know, someone that I care about and like want to, like, you know, his whole motivation is to not let that, you know, not let them go extinct. And then with Faust, it's kind of like yeah, it's definitely not just a tool, but it's also not like fully a person.
Yeah, like he doesn't want to treat Eliza as a tool, or he doesn't want to think of her that way, obviously. But it's like he's still doing that. But his goal, even if his ultimate goal is to bring her back to life, right? Like, because he hasn't gotten over like I think how does it phrase it? It's like he's stunted basically. Like he hasn't accepted loss, and in that way he's still like kind of a child. I think is how they frame it. But also while we're at it, because I got to I think there was another remix chapter that I missed, but I just noticed this one because he's got the eye patch, because we were just talking about the technology, and it's like, oh well, here's like an iPad kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And then also I was just struck by how different Manta looks with the modern art, his changed art style, where he's like softer and his hair is like fluffy and he's cute kind of. Like it's just so interesting to see.
I also like the one before that where like Anna has Yo go out shopping, but then it's like, here's money to buy yourself a CD, and then he's like, well, I'll get something nice for her, and she's like, oh, I already have that. But it's it's a wholesome it's a wholesome little thing.
It's cute. Yeah, he was thinking of her, and it just didn't work out that way. And then there's the one after that where Anna literally has, where Anna literally has like Yo's cringe compilation. Like she just has a bunch of embarrassing stuff, and it's just Jesus Christ. Yeah, Faust goes into his past with delving into necromancy to bring back Eliza. You know, Yo challenges that with his ideals about valuing life, but yeah, ultimately, like, you know, as we sort of discussed, Yo lost himself. He lost his composure. He stopped being chill and cool-headed, and Faust was able to, you know, outlast him in that way. It teaches Yo defeat, like he talks about afterwards, where it's like, you know, he always tried to be just chill and let the future happen, but didn't work out this time.
And then the boy comes in for the save with like the most like edgiest kind of one-liner, or not really a one-liner, but, you know, a quip of like, you know, because fighting the skeletons, it's like, brittle bones. They didn't drink enough milk when they were alive. I drank 3 glasses a day. And he just fucking, like, I don't know. This gives me, like, Hiei vibes, kind of, that he's just, like, an asshole.
He's definitely that kind of, like, angry, small rival guy, like Hiei or Vegeta. And especially, it's just so funny because he's like, they didn't drink enough milk, like I do. Like, because we know he's short and he's trying to get taller by drinking milk, but it's not working because it never works. But it's like, it hedges because he just fucking destroyed that skeleton like it was nothing. And then he's bragging about drinking milk. Like, it's just so silly. And then of course he does the rival thing where it's like, I can't let Yo die. He's mine. Gotta love rivals. But yeah, then Manta was hospitalized, so we get introduced to his family, who are super overbearing and controlling, and it really frames, you know, like we talked about earlier, Manta's character, especially even just from the first chapter onward. Like, as I think we were aware early on that, like, the school was a pretty high-end school, which was like why Yo being there was just so like, how the fuck can you be sleeping in class? But you know, it just pieces all together nicely. And of course, fucking Yo just sort of like casting him away because he thinks it'll be better for him, which doesn't work because friendship is too strong. But yeah,
it's an interesting moment for Yo because, like, you know, he finally gets his one friend, but, you know, for like what he thinks is for Manta's sake, he was willing to like cast that aside, and then, you know, he says that like, I'm gonna get stronger so I can bring him back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also one thing I remembered that we did, because they mentioned how Yo was called Devil Child and he was alone when he was younger, which you know, we'll learn about more, I'm sure, why he was called that. But, you know, if nothing else, like, you know, he was Manta was his first friend, and they're good. And yeah, Manta finally, like, you know, realizes why he thinks so much of Yo, and he's glad that he's, you know, following his, you know, he latched onto Yo because he was doing his own thing and following his dream, and Manta breaks from his family and just, instead of going to America, so he can find Yo.
And then Ryu comes in and he's being a fucking bro.
Yeah. Like, especially, you know, because he's always been talking about his happy place, and the way they frame that with his, like, just talk with Manta about, like, you know, hey, follow what you care about, and it's just good. And especially these two characters who, like, their early interactions were dominated by them fighting, where it's like Ryu beat up Manta in his first introduction, and then later, you know, Manta fought back and got the sword. And now they're just bros. They're just doing road trip across Japan, eating sushi, and just being good. Or no, Curry rather. I just remembered. Yeah, he was talking about wanting to go to America to do sushi. Just good character stuff.
Yeah, and he's got the fucking like cool guy motorcycle that he has to pay back in installments.
And his helmet has a pompadour, which is just such a little. It's just a little sight gag, but I just saw it again. I'm like, it's still that's so dumb. I love it. We also see Tamao, who's a shy little cute girl who likes Yo.
She reminds me of like Hinata.
I didn't think about that
because she's like sense. very like shy. She gets like a little more, I guess, like she gets to kind of like assert herself a little bit with like going after Manta. So a little more like confrontational initially. But just like that she communicates with the Kokiri board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's like, could you please stop talking with your sketchbook? It's hard to read.
No, I didn't think about how like Tamao and Anna aren't completely dissimilar from Hinata and Sakura, where you do have the one like angrier, hot-headed one, and then the more demure, soft, quiet, shy one. But obviously with the flip in that Naruto gets with Hinata, but Yo is already engaged with Anna. So yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and it's also funny that like her powers, she's always like embarrassed that it's like, oh, they're so gross.
Yeah.
But it's like she'll do whatever like for Yo's sake. And also like when Anna shows up and she's like, oh, Anna's gonna be so mad at me, and she's like, hey, thanks for sticking up for Yo. I appreciate it.
Yeah, they're
even
bonding.
If it's like she was in the wrong kinda.
Well, yeah, because they both like Yo, so they're able to kind of connect over that, even though they're in a way, I mean, rivals in love. So yeah,
yeah, it's like she's already kind of accepted her fate. That like, well, okay, yeah, Yo's engaged, so I still love him.
Yeah, exactly. Also, there's Ryu gets his hair chopped off and it becomes the heart, like I mentioned, where now he's got like a double heart actually. So it's silly. But yeah, then we get the scene you talked about earlier where Anna's like, hey, she wants to help him obviously, but they just have to have faith in him and wait, because he's in they already talked about the cave where it strips your senses away, so you get closer to death, and yeah, you'll just like. What's neat about it as far as training goes is that like there isn't really, I guess, necessarily like spirit, like a change in his character that allows him to go through the training, but that's exactly kind of why it's neat, because it's like, how do I put this? He already had the mindset to go through the cave because he just had to like, he even said he just like, just kind of just stopped worrying about the future and just, just focused on the present, and even with all my senses gone, and just got through it. But, him having to read, make sure he still held on to that after his loss, I guess, like, because if the Faust fight was him losing a bit of who he was, brushing up against this more adult character, then here it's like, no, this is still a part of you that's valid and worthwhile, and he's still holding on to it, and it's not a big deal. He's just like, because they're hyping it up, it's like, oh god, the Hell Cave, and he's just like, hey guys, what's up? I'm fucking hungry. Can I get some food?
It's like, how can you act like nothing's happened? Well, these guys told me, so that's why I wasn't surprised. And it's like, yeah, it's good. And I also like that, the thought process is like, it made me think about a lot of things, so I just stopped thinking.
God, mood, I wish, just head empty. But yeah, he shows off the fruits of his training. He's strong. And then we get the bit with Ren where he's the result of a legacy of revenge that he's just not interested in bearing. He's fighting for what he wants, which is, he wants his rematch against Yo, and he's also willing to, break all the shackles in the world, and maybe even fight his family. So setting up.
That makes me think, because I realized, like, that, like, even the chapter cover and, like, it's revealed that, like, he's got, like, the back tattoo, which obviously is, like, more of it has, like, different implications in Japan than it would, like, here. So just, I don't know if that could even be, like, connected to the stuff about the shackles of the world, and, like, because it's, like, he's branded with this, well, branded probably isn't the word, but, like, he has this mark that, he has to live with. I don't know. I could like see that being turned into something, or it could just be there to look cool. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to find out, because that about does it for the reading, where they mention how in 5 days we're gonna get the rematch fight. Then there's a couple more bonus. There's a little magical girl Tamao chapter, and then another remix one with Faust and another character who I believe this is, so back when in like at chapter 26 when the comet goes, I think we see this other character, and maybe it was Faust, or maybe I'm not sure, I'd have to double check, but I was cooking it forward, it's like, hey, maybe it's the other character with the Alogos Spolos, which is a name that I had to read a couple times to make sure I was like, because that's a fucking name. Theo is, but yeah, I'm expecting this is a character we're gonna see later. I just don't really remember them that well, so
yeah.
But that does it for the first reading of Shaman King. So yeah, liking it so far. Looking forward to more.
Yeah, I'm having a good time with it.
So yeah, next time we're gonna finish up this arc, and then we're gonna do that transitionary arc between, because this is the first round of the Shaman fight, and the bulk of the series is the second round of the Shaman fight. Like, I guess for comparison purposes, the second round is basically 150 chapters, and which is, the whole manga is like 300 chapters, so half of the manga is literally that next arc.
Damn.
So yeah, but we're gonna finish. We got one more before we can get started on that. And like I said, it's basically a big tournament coming up, so should be neat. But yeah, next time is chapters 54 through 107. So yeah, all good. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.